Okay, brethren, for a few weeks now we've been talking about this character that popularly is known as the Antichrist, all right? And I think most people who believe in end-time prophecy, which is probably most of us, tend to be looking for some powerful, charismatic, but evil figure who will come on the scene in the latter days, who will be potentially possessed by Satan the devil, and will certainly be responsible for the deaths of tens of millions or even more people, right? And many are on the lookout for this individual. Popularly, like I say, referred to as the Antichrist, although in Scripture there are a number of different names you could find, or titles at least. King of the North, the Little Horn, the Man of Sin, the Prince who is to come, and so on. But in most modern popular prophecy circles, known as the Antichrist, that's probably a reasonable title for him. People are on the lookout for him. You know, where might he be? Is he on the scene at the moment? Is he going to come in 2024, 2025, whatever? Where do you look? All right. Now, the majority opinion, which we've covered before, is that people will tend to look to Rome. And by Rome, they usually mean the old Roman Empire, which could stretch across many countries in Europe, right up to England. You know, I'm not sure you quite include Scotland. If you include England, of course, that's why some people would say, oh, King Charles, he's the Antichrist. Because England was once upon a time part of the Roman Empire, which I guess it was. Or you could go with France or Romania or Spain or whatever, right? So a lot of people are looking towards Rome. That's been a popular idea for about 1800 years. We've covered that previously. But interesting as it might be to look at what historical scholars have thought and taught, what traditions of churches or denominations have been, the real test surely is, well, what does the Bible say? Does the Bible give us some clues or some criteria to determine where we might look for this Antichrist, this little horn, right? This man of sin? I think the answer is yes. And I think last week we looked at three passages. Daniel chapter 2 was one. We're not turning there, by the way. That's the great statue that Nebuchadnezzar dreamed about, the gold, silver, bronze, and the iron legs, all right? And most popular ideas are that the fourth empire, the legs of iron, represent Rome. Hence, of course, look to Rome for the Antichrist. But I think we saw, at least I tried to establish last week, that Rome doesn't really work in terms of what the Bible says, because the Iron Empire, the fourth kingdom of iron, it says it will break in pieces, a word that means pulverize, fragment, crush. The word is deqaq, D-E-Q-A-Q in the Aramaic. And lo and behold, Rome didn't break in pieces the Persian Empire, the Silver Empire, never defeated it. Tried for hundreds of years, utterly failed. So if the Iron Empire breaks in pieces all the former ones, Rome fails. Never defeated Persia. And then, of course, like I said last week, I don't really think you could say it broke in pieces the Greek Empire. Rome, for sure, defeated the armies of Greece, but it never broke in pieces. Greek culture, the Romans actually liked it. The Romans admired much of Greece. So its architecture, its art, its literature, even its language, its philosophies, its mathematics, right? So Rome didn't destroy them, pulverize them, it actually embellished them. It used them and built upon them. So I think for those reasons, Rome fails to meet the Bible criteria. Also, we saw last week, we put a couple of maps up, that if you look at the first three empires, gold, silver, and bronze, they're in the eastern part of the world. You know? Iraq today, Persia today, and the old kingdoms of Alexander the Great are in the east. But Rome is entirely separate. It's in the west. So it's not even the same part of the world geographically, and so on. The second scripture we looked at was in Revelation 17, Right, I'm not turning there again. This is just a quick resume of where we were before. And in Revelation 17, you get the story of the harlot sitting on this beast with 7 heads and 10 horns and so on. And in that scripture, which we looked at, you've got the harlot, it says, sitting on, now this is where it gets a little bit tricky, often referred to as the city on 7 hills. And well, that's it. The city on 7 hills, everybody knows that's Rome. Rome's always been known as the city on 7 hills, therefore it's Rome. Of course, the catch there was that the scripture doesn't say a city on 7 hills. It talks about sitting on 7 mountains, 5 of which have fallen. One is and one is yet to come at the time that John the Apostle wrote his prophecies. So 7 mountains, but 5 already are gone. 5 have fallen. Only 1 left and 1 to come. So that's not city on 7 hills, is it? That's just being mischievous with the text. And then the last scripture we looked at, I believe, was Daniel chapter 9, the 70 weeks, prophecy of Daniel, 70 sevens, right? And there's 1 7-year period yet to come. And in Daniel 9, we've got the prince who is to come. That's what he's referred to there. The prince who is to come, it tells us, comes from the people that destroyed the city and sanctuary of Jerusalem. This took place in 70 AD. General Titus, a Roman general, later to become Emperor Titus, he was there in Jerusalem, and the city was destroyed. Temple set on fire, the walls pulled over 1 million Jews were killed. And the prince who is to come, who turns out to be the Antichrist, right, comes from the people who destroyed Jerusalem. Oh, that's clear. It's the Romans what done it. And therefore, the prince who is to come must be a Roman, or Roman Empire-ish. And it spreads over Spain and Germany and Austria and whatever. But like we said last week, not so fast, because the people who destroyed Jerusalem and the temple were actually essentially local conscripts. The Romans didn't bring Romans from Rome all across the empire to fight the battles. They used local guys. And in Jerusalem in 70 AD, there were 4 legions, legions 5, 10, 12, and 15. And they were made up of Middle East local conscripts, mostly from Arabia, Syria, and Egypt. So that's the people who actually destroyed Jerusalem. So the prince who is to come, most likely, I would have thought, is going to come from those, the Arabians, the Syrians, the Egyptians, right? All of which, by the way, are Islamic countries today. So that's the 3 scriptures we looked at. I don't think you can find any clear reference to Rome there. I don't think you can even find even a vague reference to Rome there. But if you want to believe it's Rome, that's obviously fine. You can choose what you want to believe. You may have reasons, for that. But I think scripturally, it's not there. I've said before, I mentioned it last week, that Islam appears to be more likely to be the empire or the kingdom we should be looking at, because the kingdom that destroyed the gold, the silver, and the bronze wasn't Rome. It failed utterly with Persia, but the one that destroyed them all was the Islamic Empire. Starting in the 600s AD, it destroyed Persia, for example, in about 5 years. And then it destroyed modern-day Iraq and all those other countries as well. In fact, the Islamic realm is still there 1,300 years later. And it did pulverize, break in pieces, but we covered all that. So that leaves us really one quite interesting passage still to look at, where people tend to point to, Rome, which is what we're looking at today, which is Daniel chapter 7. So if you want to turn there, Daniel 7, where there are 4 curious prophetic beasts mentioned. Who are those beasts? Is one of them Rome? That's essentially what we're looking at, because it becomes evident as we read the whole passage here that as we go through the 4 beasts, the little horn, another title of the Antichrist pops up. He appears in chapter 7 of Daniel, the little horn, all right, with the eyes, who speaks arrogant and pompous words, the little horn, the destroyer, right? So where does he come from? He comes from one of these four beasts. Could that be Rome? Romania? Could it be England? Answer, I think, is no, but we'll get there. Okay, starting in chapter 7, let's read verses 1 through 8. In the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream and visions of his head while on his bed. Then he wrote down the dream, telling the main facts. Daniel spoke, saying, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the four winds of heaven were stirring up the great sea. That would be the Mediterranean, I imagine. And four great beasts came up from the sea, each different from the other. The first was like a lion and had eagle's wings. I watched till its wings were plucked off, and it was lifted up from the earth and made to stand on 2 feet like a man, and a man's heart was given to it. So first beast is a lion. I think we'll see later that corresponds to the head of gold, Babylon. But we'll get to that. Verse 5, and suddenly another beast, a second like a bear. This would be corresponding, one imagines, to Persia, the silver empire of Daniel 2. It was raised up on one side and had 3 ribs in its mouth between its teeth, and they said thus to it, Arise, devour much flesh. After this I looked, and there was another, like a leopard, which had on its back 4 wings of a bird. The beast also had 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. So this corresponds to, one imagines, to the bronze of Daniel chapter 2. I've said in the past, Greece, but Greece not as you and I know it today, but Javan is the language used here, which talks more about Asia Minor and largely surrounding Turkey today. But it does say he has 4 heads, probably each is a nation. So it looks like a coalition of 4 nations or territories based around modern-day Turkey, Asia Minor. That would be my guess. I think we have a slide of the first 3. So there you go. I mean, if you're a visual person, that's what they sort of look like. A lion with wings, a bear there, and a leopard with 4 heads and some wings as well. So that's what we're looking at. And then the one that's perhaps of more interest to us is the fourth, which we'll read now in verses 7 and 8. After this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a 4th beast. And it doesn't give any animal identity. It's not a lion, it doesn't say it's a hippopotamus or a kangaroo, right? Or a porcupine. It just says a 4th beast, but dreadful and terrible, exceedingly strong. It had huge iron teeth. It was devouring, breaking in pieces. That's that word dekak again, D-E-Q-A-Q, meaning to fragment, to pulverize, to crush, to break into smithereens, right? Which Rome never did to Persia and didn't really do, in my opinion at least, to Greece. But this 4th beast does the same thing, same sort of language. It had huge iron teeth. It was devouring, breaking in pieces, and trampling the residue with its feet. It was different from all the beasts that were before it, and had 10 horns. Different in what way? Can't just mean geography. There's Babylon over there, and Persia over there, and Greece or Javan over there. This doesn't just mean it's different territory. It's totally different type of beast. We'll get to that later, hopefully. Verse 8, I was considering the horns, the 10 horns, and there was another horn, a little one, coming up among them, before whom 3 of the first horns were plucked out by the roots. And there, in this horn, were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking pompous words or great words, right? And this little horn here that comes up among the 10 and eradicates 3 of them, this is apparently the person that we know as the Antichrist. Comes out of this 4th beast, right? So it's like quite important to know who this 4th beast is. Do we find the 4th beast in Rome or Europe or elsewhere, right? That's what we'll be looking at. Now, a lot of people just think these 4 beasts just a repeat of Daniel 2 and the 4 metals of the statue. Well, just the same, right? Same 4 kingdoms, I believe. I think you could identify the kingdoms of the nations, but it's not the same prophecy. I don't think. We can have a look at that, because Daniel 2 is all historic. It runs from Nebuchadnezzar's day for 2,500 years or so to Jesus' return. Jesus, the stone cut out of the mountains without hands, smashes the statue on its feet. The statue falls over. The whole statue breaks up, and the wind blows it all away. And then the stone expands and becomes God's kingdom on the earth. So Daniel 2 is a 2,500 year prophecy. I would make the contention that the 4 beasts are all end time. It's not just another repeat of Daniel 2. We already got the story 2,500 years. This is a different part of the story. Same kingdoms, same nations, but a very much different story. This, I believe, is all end time. These 4 beasts are not one after another over 2,000 plus years, but are all contemporaneous at the end time. I think you can see that in a couple of places. So look at verse 17 while we're here. So Daniel 7 and verse 17. Those great beasts, which are 4 kings or kingdoms, which arise out of the earth. Now that implies these are 4 kings or kingdoms which will arise, right? Not have arisen in the past, but will arise. Now, at the time that Daniel's being talked to here by the angels, Belshazzar is the king of Babylon, and he's about to go. He was the last king of Babylon, right? He's the guy who saw the writing on the wall and found out his kingdom was about to be destroyed, and that very night it was destroyed, and the Medes and the Persians arrived and took over that very night. So Belshazzar is the last king of Babylon. Babylon is just about finished. So it says here these 4 kings or kingdoms which will arise. You couldn't say that about Babylon because it was over, almost over, right? Down to the last few months. That would make no sense. And it is, I think, talking in a future sense of 4 kings or kingdoms which will in the future arise. We can look at some other translations, and I think we have a slide to help you here. I've got the words in front of me, but New King James Version, which is what I generally read, it says 4 kings which arise. A bit ambiguous what that might mean, but here you've got, for example, the King James Version, which you might prefer, are 4 kings which shall arise, or 4 kingdoms which shall arise. Remember, Babylon is over. The last king, Belshazzar, is about to lose his position, so Babylon isn't going to arise as a kingdom. It's finished. It's finito. It's over. It's history. The ESV, 4 kings who shall arise, the New American Standard, 4 kings who will arise, and the NIV, the nearly inspired version, 4 kings that will rise. All right? So I think the language is fairly clear. There might be some ambiguity in it, verbs and tenses are not always super easy to nail them down, but the impression I get is this is 4 kings or kingdoms who will yet arise. And that can't include Babylon because it's over, right? Also, have a look at verses 11 and 12, which I think is another hint that we're looking at end time contemporaneous fulfillment of 4 beasts, not the Daniel 2 version. Verse 11 and 12, I watched then because of the sound of the pompous words which the horn was speaking. This is the Antichrist, all right? Antichrist, you'll see several references later to he blasphemes. His pompous, arrogant words are against God, against the Christ, against the coming ruler of the earth, He's the Antichrist. I watched then because of the sound of the pompous words which the horn was speaking. I watched till the beast, the fourth beast, was slain, and its body destroyed and given to the burning flame. Right? Fourth beast destroyed. That's what it says there. Verse 12 though. As for the rest of the beasts, 1, 2, and 3, lion, bear, and leopard, they had their dominion taken away, yet their lives were prolonged for a season and a time. Right? So the fourth beast is slain and destroyed, but not the first three. They continue. For a season, I don't know how long that is, a season and a time. Right? But they continue for a while. Have lost their power and dominion, of course, but they're still there. They still exist. Still people there, and so on and so forth. Right? So these appear to be contemporaneous. Right? And I think that's different from Daniel chapter 2, where all are destroyed simultaneously. I think we have a slide that sort of endeavours to show that. So on the left, you've got the famous statue with the stone coming down and battering it on the feet, and all the statue is destroyed at that time. Whereas on the right, got a little not equals sign in the middle there, you have the four beasts. The fourth beast is destroyed, but the other three lose their power. It says lose their dominion, no longer a particular force, but they still exist. They still carry on for a while. So I think you're looking there at four contemporaneous end time kingdoms. Now, if you think back to Daniel 2, most scholars say, well, yeah, the iron legs are Rome, so it's not a great surprise that people looking at the four beasts say, yeah, the fourth beast is Rome, right? Because they're being consistent at least. But if they're wrong about the Daniel 2 image and the iron legs, and I believe they are because Rome didn't do what the iron legs are supposed to do. So if people are wrong with Daniel 2 and picking out Rome as the fourth kingdom, then they're going to be wrong in Daniel 7, right? And if you look at who the kingdoms are, well, the lion, the first beast, I should say, is a lion, right? That corresponds, I think, to Babylon, the gold head of Babylon, which, of course, is modern-day Iraq, right? It is. That's just on the maps. You can find it. And Iraq, by the way, is a Muslim country today. It's Islamic, all right? The bear is the same as the silver kingdom of Daniel 2, which is modern-day Persia. We typically call it Iran for the last 30 or 40 years. That's what they prefer to be called, Iran, the Iranians. And Iran, of course, is an Islamic country. Third, you've got the leopard, which is Greece, but really it's Javan in the original languages. And Javan is more to do with Ionia. And the biggest country there today is Asia Minor, which we call Turkey. But it's a coalition. It says four heads, so four nations grouped together, I believe led by Turkey. And of course, Turkey, surprise, surprise, is an Islamic country. So the first three are Islamic. Any suggestions for the fourth empire? Might that possibly be Islamic? To which my answer would be absolutely, right? Now, Daniel seems most interested in the fourth beast, right? And we'll see that in a moment, which I think is fair, and probably you and I should be too. So we have, I think, a little slide of the fourth beast. Now, the fourth beast is not a lion or a bear or an eagle or a kangaroo or a hippopotamus. It's a great, terrible beast with 10 horns and all the rest of it. And it tramples and destroys, got iron teeth. Great, terrible fourth beast. And that's the one that Daniel gets most perplexed over. What's this beast all about, right? And if he's that interested in the fourth beast, which is where the little horn comes from, I guess you and I should be too. So let's read verses 15 and 8 through 18. Daniel 7, beginning in verse 15. I, Daniel, was grieved in my spirit within my body, and the visions of my head troubled me. I came near to one of those who stood by, I guess that's an angel, and asked him the truth of all this. So he told me and made known to me the interpretation of these things. So he's seen the vision, but what's that supposed to mean? And you and I might be in the same position. Okay, we've got the beasts and so on. What does that mean? Daniel's the same. Those great beasts, verse 17, which are four kings which arise, or shall arise, or will arise out of the earth. But the saints of the Most High shall receive the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever, even forever and ever. Again, I think that tells you the time period. These four kings which shall arise, and which is going to be explained to Daniel, are the time period when the saints receive the kingdom, when Jesus returns. So as far as I'm concerned, that's again additional evidence that these are end time beasts. They make their mark on the world just before the saints receive the kingdom and rule forever and ever. Right. Verses 19 through 20. Then I wished to know the truth about the fourth beast, which was different from all the others, exceedingly dreadful, with its teeth of iron and its nails of bronze, which devoured, notice, broke in pieces, pulverizes, and trampled the residue with its feet, and the 10 horns that were on its head. And Daniel wants to know about the other horn, which came up, before which 3 fell, namely that horn which had eyes and a mouth, which spoke pompous, arrogant words, whose appearance was greater than his fellows. So a strong horn, pompous, arrogant horn. This is the Antichrist. All right? That's what I'm saying, at least. I was watching, verse 21, and the same horn was making war against the saints and, unfortunately, prevailing against them until the Ancient of Days came, and a judgment was made in favor of the saints of the Most High, and the time came for the saints to possess the kingdom. Again, that's end time, right? And it says here that this little horn with the arrogant words makes war against the saints and prevails against them. I think there's martyrdom included there, until the Ancient of Days came. This is the run-up to Jesus' return. Again, end time. So I don't think there's anything here to do with ancient history in Daniel 7. This is contemporaneous nations at the end of the days, with the fourth kingdom being the particularly brutal one. Right? And I think the Islamic realm fits the bill. Can't be Rome, because Rome doesn't fit Daniel 2, and this is clearly a very similar kingdom. Verse 21 to 20, I've done that. Verse 23 to 25. Thus he said, this is the angel helping Daniel to understand this fourth beast. The fourth beast shall be a fourth kingdom on earth, which shall be different from all other kingdoms, and shall devour the whole earth. Well, it's different from other kingdoms, but in what way could that be? Just a different territory? Well, Babylon's a different territory to Persia, which is a different territory to Greece or Asia Minor. Right? So if the fourth kingdom is just a different part of the world, what way is it really different? Well, I suggest it's different because it's different in type. Because Babylon's an empire based in Babylon with Babylonian people, and Persia's an empire based in Persia with Persian people. This is an Islamic realm. It's a religious empire. It's not based upon individuals in a country. It's a regional realm of religion over many peoples, many tongues, many tribes. And it's their religion that gives it its impetus and its power, its objective and goal. If it's Islam, for example, the goal of Islam is to conquer the world for Islam and have Sharia law, Islamic law everywhere. That's the prime objective of the Islamic religion. Conquer the world for Allah, for Muhammad, and have Sharia law literally everywhere. Right? So that's why I think it's different. It's not just different territory, it's different in type. Verse 24, the 10 horns are 10 kings who shall arise from this kingdom, so 10 nations linked together in this Islamic realm. And another shall arise after them. He shall be different from the first ones, and shall subdue 3 kings. So this little horn, this pompous, arrogant little horn, subdues 3 of the first 10, right? In my inspired marginal notes, I've got the 3 kings who are being eradicated, eliminated, or whatever, possibly Libya, Egypt, and Sudan. Right? Now that's what you call speculation with my rubber chicken, right? I can't obviously confirm that because who knows? We see through a glass darkly with prophecy. It just so happens in Daniel 11, the king of the north, which is another title of the Antichrist, it says that he overcomes Libya, Egypt, and Sudan. So I'm taking that from Daniel 11, just plugging it in there as a possibility. Doesn't make too much difference. You can just tell that this little horn is powerful, arrogant, takes action, stronger, more sturdy than the other horns, and dominates, right? As we expect the Antichrist to do. Verse 25, he, the little horn, shall speak pompous words against the Most High, shall persecute the saints of the Most High, shall intend to change times and law, perhaps Sharia law, being pushed. And then the saints, well, that's in italics, I'm not sure it really should be there. Then the saints shall be given into his hand for time and times and half a time, which is of course a period of about 3.5 years. 1 time is a year, times plural, 2 years, half a time, half a year. So time times half a time is about 3.5 years, which seems to be the time that he has his optimum power. It's about 3.5 year period. 3.5 years, time times half a time, can be 1260 days, can be 42 months. Scripture has that number appearing in several places, right? But notice that this little horn, verse 25, speaks pompous words against the Most High, persecutes the saints, hates God, hates God's people. Of course, the man of sin, which is another of his titles, sits in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God, seeks to be worshipped and adored, pompous, arrogant, stands up against God, stands up against Christ, hence Antichrist. Right. Now we've got this time, times, and half a time, right, which is a period that appears in a number of places. We'll look at a couple of 3 of those places now. Let's have a look at Daniel 9, which one have we been to at least 100 times in the last month? Make it 101. Verse 27, so cutting out the introductions. Then he, the prince who is to come, right, from those who destroyed Jerusalem and the sanctuary, which is the conscripts from the Middle East, Arabia, Syria, and Egypt. At least that's what the records show. He, this prince who is to come, this Antichrist, shall confirm a covenant or a treaty with many for 1 week, 1 7-year period. But in the middle of the week, that's 3.5 years, right? Halfway through 7 is 3.5. In the middle of the week, he shall bring an end to sacrifice and offering in the Jewish temple, and on the wing of abomination shall be one who makes desolate. It's a bit awkward, the English translation there. But this is the prince who is to come, the Antichrist, who stops the sacrifices, installs the abomination of desolation at 3.5 years through the final 7, leaving 3.5 years to come, all right? And you remember that Jesus did say, when you see the abomination of desolation, spoken of by Daniel the prophet, standing in the holy place, if you're in Judea, flee. Get out of Israel. Don't stay there, because then there'll be great tribulation. Unlike anything before, and except those days are cut short, no flesh would be saved, right? And this is the abomination of desolation. This is the prince who is to come. At the 3.5 year point, he reneges on this 7-year treaty, and hell on earth erupts, right? Antichrist. 3.5 years, of course, is the approximate time of the great tribulation that Jesus mentioned. And we can see the 3.5 year period elsewhere. Let's look at Daniel 12. read verses 4 and then 6 through 7. So verse 4, "But you, Daniel, says the angel, shut up the words and seal the book until the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro, knowledge shall increase." So the book of Daniel has been sealed up until the end times, which we sort of think were there, right? But what it certainly implies is that any commentary that's written before, right? Like Sir Isaac Newton did a great commentary on the book of Daniel, the book of Revelation, but despite the guy being a genius sort and super sincere, he couldn't understand because it was sealed up. Ditto other commentaries, Adam Clarke, right, Jameson, Fawcett and Brown, all these great commentaries or useful commentaries, they can't really help because the book's sealed up until we get to the end time. Look at verses 6 and 7. "One said to the man clothed in linen, who was above the waters of the river," a couple of angels, "how long shall the fulfillment of these wonders, these prophesied events, be? Then I heard the man clothed in linen, who was above the waters of the river," angel, "when he held up his right hand and his left hand to heaven, and swore by him who lives forever, that it shall be for a time, times, and half a time. And when the power of the holy people has been completely shattered and destroyed, all these things shall be finished." So prophesied destruction of the saints, and it's going to take a time, times, and half a time, 3.5 years, 42 months, right? Now the time period is 3.5 years. I've said before, if you see time, times, and half a time, the Hebrew is moed or moedim, so I tend to think that it's not just a random 3.5 years. That's the duration for sure, but it probably is timed to coincide with some of the biblical holy days, which are also referred to as moed and moedim. But anyway, 3.5 years. Dropping down to verses 8 to 11. "Although I heard, I did not understand." I sympathize. Daniel, I think it's awkward. "Then I said, my Lord," to the angel, "what shall be the end or the outcome of these things?" He said, "Go your way, Daniel, for the words are closed up and sealed till the time of the end." Okay, got that. "Many shall be purified, made white, and refined. But the wicked shall do wickedly, and none of the wicked shall understand, but the wise shall understand." This is the end time environment. Verse 11, "And from the time that the daily sacrifice is taken away or abolished," hasn't started yet, remember? Need the red heifer and its ashes and so on. "From the time that the daily sacrifice is taken away and the abomination of desolation is set up, there shall be 1,290 days." Right? Which is approximately 1260, but obviously isn't 1260. So it's a similar time period. 42 months, 3.5 years, time, times, and half a time, which comes to about 1260 days. That's 1290, so another 30 days has been added there. Reasons, not sure. 30 days is approximately 1 month in the Hebrew calendar, but roughly the same sort of period of time. And when you see these various references, it does lead us to believe that there's a short, it'll be long enough. If you're in this time of trouble, it will seem like 50 years. In reality, it's only 42 months, right? Unfortunately, it's a time when Satan's working pretty hard to destroy and to kill, because the Antichrist, I think we'll see, is motivated by Satan and very possibly possessed by Satan. Look at Revelation 12, talking of Satan and his hatred for the people of God. So Revelation 12, I'm going to read verses 13 through 17, I guess. Revelation 12, beginning verse 13. "Now when the dragon, it tells us earlier, is the devil and Satan, so that's who we're talking about. Now when the dragon saw that he had been cast to the earth, he persecuted the woman who gave birth to the male child. But the woman was given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness to her place, where she is nourished for a time, and times, and half a time, from the presence of the serpent." So there's that 3.5 year period again, but I think coinciding with biblical holy days. Verse 15, so the serpent, the devil, spewed water out of his mouth like a flood after the woman, that he might cause her to be carried away by the flood. But the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened its mouth and swallowed up the flood which the dragon had spewed out of his mouth. So, to some extent at least, the woman who flees into the wilderness is helped and defended and protected. And for some folks, oh, good, because I'm sure I'll be one of those people who'll head off there to this place of safety. So I'm going to be protected. I'm a believer. I deserve to be protected from the devil. Hard luck. Verse 17, and the dragon, the devil, was enraged with the woman and went to make war with the rest of her offspring, who keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. Oh dear. If you keep God's commandments, if you have the testimony of Jesus Christ, covered by the blood, so to speak, the devil's after you at this time, having been cast to the earth. It says he's enraged with the woman, and he goes to make war with the rest of her offspring. Now, question mark, how could Satan do that? How can the devil make war against believers who keep the commandments and have got the testimony of Jesus Christ as their Savior? How can the devil do that? Does the devil sort of find a cave somewhere and sit in the cave and just think and beam terrible thoughts out of his mind, and the terrible thoughts go around the globe and land on people and make people fall over and writhe in pain and agony? Is that how the devil makes war? By thinking in his mind? No. The devil needs access to governments. He needs military. He needs police. He needs security services, right? He needs commanders. He needs military. He needs all of that. And that's where chapter 13 comes in, right? So you get to the end of chapter 12 and the devil's enraged and going to make war. There's no chapter break. I don't think there should be a chapter break, because chapter 13 tells us how he does it. This is how he organizes the war. These are the logistics. This is the mechanics of how he does it, right? So it's not just we jump from the devil in chapter 12 and suddenly we're talking about the beast, or a beast in chapter 13. It's connected. The beast of chapter 13 is how the devil gets his way against the saints that he wants to persecute and kill, right? So let's read it with that understanding. I'm going to read verses 1 through 4 to start with. Then I stood on the sand of the sea, John speaking, and I saw a beast rising up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and on his horns 10 crowns, and on his heads a blasphemous name. Now the beast which I saw was like a leopard. You'll see essentially we're looking here at a sort of a single beast, but it's a sort of composite beast. I think we probably know that. It's fairly well understood. The 4 beasts of Daniel chapter 7, the lion, the bear, and the leopard, and the great and terrible beast has become this unified composite beast of Revelation 13. It's the end time fulfillment. So, verse 2, now the beast which I saw was like a leopard, his feet like the feet of a bear, his mouth like the mouth of a lion. That's the first three beasts, right? The dragon, the devil, Satan, gave him his power, his throne, and great authority. So the devil, in some way, I can't quite figure out, right, gives power and might and authority to this beast. Now, when it talks of the beast, you can think of the beast as either the beast empire or the leader of it. Just like when you see a mountain in prophecy, like in Revelation 17, it can be the king or the kingdom, right? Those are interchangeable. So here we can see the beast as the empire, made up of perhaps millions and millions of adherents, or it could be talking of the leader, which in this case, the leader of the beast would be the Antichrist. We'll see that in a little bit. Verse 3. But remember, the devil wants to attack the people who keep the commandments and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. He now empowers this organization, this realm, which I'm going to say is the Islamic realm, to carry out his wishes and kill Christians. right? Verse 3, and I saw one of his heads, he had 7 heads, as it had been mortally wounded. And of course, if you look at the beasts in Daniel 7, there's 4 beasts, but one of them had 4 heads, right? The leopard, so that's 7 heads altogether. I saw one of his heads as it had been mortally wounded, and his deadly wound was healed. And all the world marveled and followed the beast. So they worshipped the dragon, my word, who gave authority to the beast, and they worshipped the beast, saying, who is like the beast? Who is able to make war with him? So I think what you can pick up from these few verses is this beast, perhaps talking of the empire, kingdom, is very strong militarily, because it says there, who can make war? Who could take on this empire, this realm, this beast? Because clearly massive military power, right? It's like I said, it's a composite of the beasts of Daniel. It has 10 horns here, and almost certainly, this is my view. Reasons I've expressed before. This is, I think, an Islamic realm based in the Middle East over the territories of the lion, the bear, the leopard. In other words, over the territories of Iraq and Iran and Turkey and other countries around there, Saudi Arabia and so on and so forth. Middle East Islamic Empire, in my opinion. And notice it's empowered by Satan the devil. So he's going to use it to get his objectives. It mentions there in verse 3, has been mortally wounded, and his deadly wound was healed. Speculation. I've said in the past, and I think it's still okay with my statements in the past, that this possibly could have been the destruction of the Ottoman Empire. The longest lived empire in the Islamic realm was the Ottoman Empire, which ran from about 1300 something to 1922, 600-year reign, based in, I think, Istanbul, right, or Constantinople, as it used to be called, in Asia Minor. So that's the Turkey part of what we've been looking at, and that empire, which spread up to Austria and across many Eastern European countries and all through the Middle East and across North Africa, very powerful empire, right? One of the most powerful, widespread ever, I think, in man's history. And that came to a crunching end in 1922 through 1924. Started with the First World War, which they were on the losing side. And after the war, it was all closed down. And the guy that ran it, the title of the guy was the Caliph, the Caliphate. So that was wound down in 1924, right? And I know the current leader of Turkey, Mr. Recep Erdogan, is very keen to resurrect the Ottoman Empire, right? Now, I thought he might try and do that by the centenary, which would be like next year at the outside, but I'm not sure now whether he's the man or whether he'll be able to do that. But that's certainly, he's keen. He's a strong Islamic, devout Islamist. He wants to restore the power, the prestige, the status of Turkey and the Ottoman Empire. He's looking for ways. So, as speculation, but no more than that, he might be the guy who restores the mortal wound, the deadly wound of 1922. Maybe next year. Maybe not him. Don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Right, so let's move on and read verses. So I keep an eye on Mr. Erdogan. I do keep an eye on Mr. Erdogan. He's quite wild at times. Verses 5 through 8. And he, the beast empire, or the beast leader, was given a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies. Well, we know the little horn, right? Pompous, arrogant, the man of sin who claims to be greater than God, sitting in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God, seeking worship and admiration, right? He was given a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies. And he was given authority to continue for 42 months, 3.5 years, 1260 days, times and half a time. All fits, right? Then he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God, to blaspheme his name, his tabernacle, those who dwell in heaven. This is the pompous little horn. Can't stop from blaspheming everything that is good, everything to do with God, God's saints, blaspheme, pompous words, arrogant words, great words. That's what he's like. It was granted to him to make war with the saints, as the little horn was in Daniel 7, and to overcome them. Don't like that part. And authority was given him over every tribe, tongue, and nation. All who dwell on the earth will worship him, whose names have not been written in the book of life of the Lamb, slain from the foundation of the world. So the whole earth, it seems, worships this beast or this beast leader, right? Now it says there, verse 8, all who dwell on the earth will worship him. The word earth is ge, G-E, in the Greek. It's one of those ambiguous words. It could mean the whole earth. I mean, you look at every tribe, tongue, and nation, that sort of leads you that way. But it can mean land or, region. So it could be that the beast is powerful in this region, the Middle East region of the earth, rather than the whole world. We have to wait and see. Could be either. Sometimes I move one way and sometimes I move the other way, so I'm keeping my bets open there. Verses 9 and 10.
You don't want to miss out on a technicality.
Don't want to miss out on a technicality, no.
To quote Bob Hope.
Verses 9 and 10. If anyone has an ear, let him hear. He who leads into captivity shall go into captivity. He who kills with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience, or the perseverance, and faith of the saints. Slightly odd little couple of verses there, but I think it's basically talking about those who are part of the beast empire, the soldiers, the leaders, the commanders, and all of that. If they lead people into captivity, it's going to come to them. They're going to go into captivity in turn. If they lead people to be killed, they'll get killed in turn. You reap what you sow. This is just, and it says here, the patience and the faith of the saints. It's just reminding the saints that, bide your time. Be patient. Endure. It's going to come. Vengeance will be reaped upon those who are causing the problems. Those who take into captivity, torture and so on, they will be taken captive. Those who kill among the beast empire and its legions of people, they'll be killed in due turn. So don't worry in a sense. I think you might be sweating a bit, but basically justice will occur. And by the way, it says there, he who kills with the sword must be killed with the sword. Well, if there's one well-known group that like killing with swords, it happens to be the Islamic world. Killing with the sword and beheading is part and parcel of their history. They've got a whole type of mythology about killing with swords and beheading and swords. So the saints are reminded there to be patient, wait God's intervention when he comes to judge the beast and all the millions who are part of the beast world and so on, and who are enjoying their time of power. It only lasts for about 42 months, 3.5 years in its worst state. And they'll dominate, the beast, the man of sin, the king of the north, the little horn, the Antichrist will dominate for much of this final 3.5 years. So it's just, like I said earlier, it's a long period if you're in it. If you're under the thumb of the Antichrist, king of the north, man of sin, son of perdition, it's going to seem quite long. An hour in a dentist chair can seem like quite a long period. That's our experience this week, right? But 3.5 years, I don't fancy that. But they will come to an end. And then God will come down and judge, and we can see the end of the beast. If we turn to Revelation chapter 19, you might have a sort of good run at it. I mean, it seems he creates or gets into this covenant or treaty for 7 years, right? And then halfway through that, he reneges and cancels sacrifices, sets up the abomination, and then the Great Tribulation kicks off, says Jesus in Matthew 24. So he certainly has a 7-year total period, the final 3.5 being the really grim bits, and perhaps he's on the scene for a little while before the 7 years starts. So we have to wait and see, keep our eyes open. But we're going to look for him. Going to look for King Charles in England to be the Antichrist. Emmanuel Macron, perhaps in France, is he your man? Olaf Scholz in Germany, Pope Francis, who's not a Catholic, by the way. Or, well, I'm looking, me and my friend Nebuchadnezzar, I'm looking towards the Middle East countries, or Islamic countries at least, possibly Syria, Egypt, right, or that part of the world. You know, time will tell. There's a few other hints we could look at, but we're not going to. But the beast eventually meets his date with destiny. Revelation 19, verses 19 to 20. And I saw the beast, the kings of the earth and their armies, gathered together to make war against him, capital H, Jesus, who sat on the horse, and against his army, which I believe is the resurrected saints. So I think the beast here we're seeing is referred to as an individual. Revelation 13, it could be the empire of the beast, it could be the individual, the man of sin, the Antichrist, who heads it up and leads it and makes the decisions where to send his armies and his security and his police, so on. But here, the language suggests we're talking about the individual, the beast, the Antichrist. This is his comeuppance. Verse 20, then the beast was captured. Individuals, I don't think you capture an empire with 25 million or 50 million or 100 million people in it, right? Then the beast was captured, and with him the false prophet, who worked signs in his presence. Another individual. That's the back end of chapter 13 of Revelation. We didn't go there. Don't really have time. But the beast, individual of Revelation 13, 1 through 8, and then later that chapter, the false prophet, another individual who works miracles and creates the mark of the beast. Oops, right? Verse 20, then the beast was captured, and with him the false prophet who worked signs in his presence, by which he deceived those who received the mark of the beast and those who worshipped his image. These two individuals, were cast alive into the lake of fire, burning with brimstone. And that's the end of them, right? So the beast has a shortish span of being a complete nightmare, evil, working as a patsy of Satan the devil. Satan works through this man of sin, this Antichrist and his empire, to go after the saints, seek to destroy them. And the man of sin, the little horn, pompous, arrogant, blasphemes God left, right, and center, enters the temple and says, I'm God, worship me, right? Thankfully, he gets his end. Burnt in the lake of fire with his pal, the false prophet, right? And like I said earlier, the kingdom of God, the stone breaks all these empires in pieces, and the Spirit blows them all away, and all civilizations and religions are gone, including Islam and my view, my friend's view, the Islamic Antichrist, right? And all I can say finally is the sooner the better. And with that, we'll conclude today's Bible study.